If you are interested in starting your own podcast, we use Buzzsprout because it is simple and easy to use. Buzzsprout can get your show listed on every major platform while giving you the resources for a great podcast website, audio players that can drop into other websites, detailed analytics to see how people are listening to your podcast, and tools to promote your episodes. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and that is why over 100,000 podcasters are already subscribed to Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Following the link in our episode descriptions lets Buzzsprout know that we sent you. So in return, you will receive a $20 Amazon gift card from Buzzsprout while signing up for a paid plan. Most importantly, every subscription through our link is always appreciated and helps support our show so we can continue delivering the quality content that you guys listen to. That being said, back to the show.
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Junkies. I'm Andrew.
This is Joe.
And this time we're coming at you. This is our 101st episode. Welcome to all of you new friends here. We are the Comic Book Junkies. This time we're coming at you with one of our top 10 lists. This time around, we're going to look at comic book movies. So, as a little disclaimer, that's not just superhero movies. It's anything based on a comic or has to do with comics that would meet the criteria for our movie list. And I'll also let you know, we did not discuss what our lists are beforehand. So, this is completely fresh to both of us. And we are not doing a combined list. We're just kind of going to run through our movies. And I guess one more little disclaimer at the top is this is not our opinion of the top 10 of all time. I mean, I feel like you can go to Google and get any Joe Schmo's opinion on that, or the court of public opinion, or what have you. So these are going to be our favorite movies. I mean, to varying degrees, I'm sure. I know my list isn't like dead set firm, but I put basically the gist of, if you wanted to get to know me through a comic book movie, this is how you do it. But before we get into it, how's it hanging, Joe?
It's hanging low.
Cool.
Yeah, dangling. But that's a great way to put it. It's a great way to get to know our personalities because there's some movies in my top 5 that I wouldn't consider even 9 out of 10 movies, but I enjoy them. And I feel like
Right.
that's what matters. And forgive me if I sound stupid because we've been doing this for so long. I have no idea if we've made a top 10 list for movies in the past. I feel like it'd be crazy if we didn't, but I feel like us talking about what we enjoy personally is what makes this list pretty unique today. So,
I think it's
Burger.
a good way to get into a movie talk again too, because you and I mean, if you're not new around here, you're CBJ faithful. We used to do quite a few comic book movie reviews, but I mean, it feels like just less and less have been coming out. I mean, probably the pandemic type stuff and like, whatever, a lot of TV shows lately, but just a lot of stuff that we're not really that interested in. So it's nice to be able to talk about movies in a more refreshing context. But yeah, as you said, I'll get us kicked off. I mean, do we just want to kind of both work our way 10 through 1 and just kind of, I mean, take turns talking movies? I'm sure we'll have some overlap in terms of our ratings, so we can just kind of, chat it up then.
That sounds
But
good to me.
cool. Well, I'll get us started with my number 10 movie. Has to make the list. It's especially good around Halloween time, which isn't anytime soon, but the first Blade movie feels like an absolute comic book movie. There's so many cool aspects to it. I mean, Blade 2 is fine. Blade 3 is awful. Blade 1 rules, though. I mean, the vampire blood rave at the beginning, sick. One of the best comic book scenes, I would argue, in terms of just badassness. Introduces us to Blade. He's got the sick flat top, styled up do. He's got his sunglasses on at the rave. He's got swords, he's got guns, and he's just tearing everybody up. Them vampires didn't stand a chance, dog. I mean, the whole movie's pretty cool. It's a good origin, especially for like, given our age, that's almost like a nostalgic thing for us. That was like the era of like the kind of like the early Hulk movies and the Ghost Rider movies and stuff like that. But every time Blade comes on, even my wife, she likes watching the first Blade movie around Halloween. I'm like, hell yeah. So I feel like it's kind of stood the test of time. I mean, they're coming out with a new Blade movie, and I'm going to be a harsh critic because I don't know if one, they're going to have the same direction. It's not going to have the same grungy early 2000s vibe that the other one had, that I feel like kind of made the time and place feel appropriate. And I mean, it's not going to be Wesley Snipes. So I don't know if it's gonna, those are big boots to fill. You know what I'm saying? The Daywalker.
I like the guy that they casted to play Blade.
Mahershala?
Yeah, I think he's a good actor, but you're right. I don't think that they could capture that time and place.
The
So they would just
gravitas,
have
dude.
to come at it with a different angle if they're gonna make it good. But that's a good movie to put on your list. I didn't even think about Blade for some reason, and I still don't know if it would have made my top 10, but it would have been in that discussion for top 10. So good call, Burger.
Yeah, that's fair. And like I said, like through the lens of like getting to know me, I'll just give you a little spoiler here. I didn't put Ghost Rider on my list, but that's also up there because it's like that same kind of vibe. It feels like, it's not a great movie, like really, but there's something kind of comforting about it. Like it's got a level of cheese that's appropriate for a Marvel comic, but by today's standards is a little bit too corny, especially with, the advancements in CGI and stuff. But enough about Blade. What's your movie, huh?
I cheated for 10, so I
Yeah,
apologize. All right.
go ahead.
So my fake answer, because it's not a comic book movie, would be True Romance. 8 out of
Okay.
10. Have you seen True Romance?
I don't think I have.
So I just wanted to get my weird one out of the way. I think it's better in Clerks for movies that have comic book stuff in it, but isn't actually like a comic book movie. It's like a crime romance movie in the early 90s about some comic book nerd falling in love with a prostitute. And it's got all the
Real.
great actors in it. It's like it's got the main actor from Sopranos. It's got young Brad Pitt in it. It gets weird at times, but I recommend watching it.
Sick. I'll have to put it on
But
the
my
list.
real number 10 is Batman Beyond Return of the Joker. I really,
Oh,
really, really wanted to give it to Batman Mask of the Phantasm because they're both excellent animated movies, but I feel like the Return of the Joker just stood with me a little more. I don't know if it's just because I love that version of the Joker so much. And you hear me talk about how he's like not even close to being like my number one Batman villain, but like that version of the Joker just kills it for me. And I don't know, excellent use of Tim Drake in that movie. Great movie to watch if you've never seen Batman Beyond in general, because it does a great job of picking up the same vibes as the TV show, but they're able to flesh out a lot more with how much time they're given in like movie time. Because instead of like 20 minutes with commercials, it's like I don't know how long the movie is, but they're
yeah.
really able to do everything that they want to do in the shows in that movie. And I just thought it was a excellent use of an animated film.
I'll be real. I'm not sure I've actually seen that all the way through. I mean, I probably did when I was younger, but like not enough to remember exactly. But I mean, it's hard to go wrong with any of those animated films from that time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know you've definitely gone through all the Batman, the animated series, and like Batman Beyond and stuff like that. So you obviously have it a little bit more fresh in the mind than I do. But like, I don't remember ever having a bad time with those on. Pivotal to DC and Batman as a character, especially for our generation. But feels like you've said your piece, so we'll go on to number 9 for me. No surprise here. Hellboy. First Hellboy. I hate the reboot. Like that David Harbour guy. Nah. Second one was whatever. It was fine. But the first one is also just kind of in the same way that I appreciate and enjoy Blade. It's kind of the same way I enjoy Hellboy. It's just kind of a vibe, I guess. Like when we read Seed of Destruction, it takes a lot of plot points from stuff like that. But, it's I don't know, it's just the aesthetic of it's really cool. I mean, I like the practical effects. The way they did up Ron Perlman as Hellboy was sick, Abe Sapien, but it really was just like that early 2000 feel, which, it was kind of generic. Like it had plot points that were kind of generic as the way movies were just made then. But like I said, it must be like a nostalgia type thing because I just really appreciate all of that stuff. But I mean, they're fighting, occult Nazis and stuff like that, which I always find cool to like whoop their ass. Like a supernatural Nazi story is pretty sick. It's not Shuma Gorath, but it starts to get a little bit more of like that Lovecraftian kind of feel too, which I appreciate that like Eldritch horror type stuff a little bit in between. Then maybe I'm conflating it between 1 and 2, but the way that clock guy, well, his like heart's like a runs on like a clock machine, like stabs broom. I think that was 2 actually, wasn't it? I don't recall, but either way, Hellboy 1 ruled. And yeah, I mean, other than that, I don't have too much to expound upon. It's just like if you want to really know what I'm into, I mean, obviously, like that kind of feeling of a movie, since I'm not exactly a huge movie buff as it is, it just kind of sits right with me for things that like I can look back fondly on for the comic book medium, especially when there's a lot of things that are cookie cutter. I just really like things that build like an atmosphere or kind of like an aesthetic that's kind of memorable. And I feel like that meets the criteria. But yeah,
Well, I know you're a big Ron Perlman guy, and it is
more
really
so in that
Lovecraftian.
movie. I don't know if
Yeah.
I'm a Ron Perlman guy out of that movie, to be
Oh,
real with
come
you.
on, Burger. Now's not the time.
No,
Uh,
dude, he bitches too much.
my bad.
That's what
Well,
I'm saying.
your number
But
nine might be better than my number nine, but I wanted to put something Marvel that's newer that wasn't completely cringe.
mhm.
So I put Werewolf by Night. That's my favorite live action Marvel movie. I
I guess that
almost
does
gave
count
it
as a movie, right?
to Infinity War. I'm counting it, I guess. But I guess to go back to what I was saying, like Endgame was so trash to me that I just had to give it to Werewolf by Night instead. I don't know if it's just because I love the character so much, but I felt like it was kind of, I don't know if this is the right word, but like courageous of Marvel because it was like so unique to all the other blockbusters that they've put out at this like time that they've just kept putting out movies and movies and movies, and it feels like more quantity than quality. But with this
Yeah.
movie in particular, like I feel like they took a lot of time with like subtleties, and for like a black and white film nowadays, I don't know, it was really well done, kind of like how Ed Wood was really well done. And then I could just be a sucker for monster movies too. I don't know, but I had to put one of those movies on my list. Again, Infinity War was close, but I decided to give Werewolf by Night the edge.
I agree with you completely. The only way I could disagree is if I'm like one of them neckbeards and I'm just like, well, actually, I don't know that it was like a special presentation. It's not a feature-length film. But no, I completely agree with you. It's like honestly one of the best things they've put out in recent memory. I mean, I probably enjoy it as much as you did, and just like the cinematography that it was shot in black and white, and it was refreshing. It wasn't just cookie cutter, like they had just someone squatting and pooping another movie out that like is a blockbuster that nobody's gonna care about. It
And
was
it
actually like
opened up the door for like Man Thing and all that other stuff too. So if they really wanted to do something there, they have space for it now. And I think it would be a mistake to not capitalize that. And on top of that, I feel like they didn't do enough marketing to have more
right,
people watching that because it's on Disney Plus. Like there's no reason why they shouldn't have emphasized that movie. And it feels like kind of slipped through the cracks, but
right.
it's a good movie.
Great movie. For number eight, I guess I don't know between the two movies. So I'm gonna like half and half them for eight. But the Spider-Man Spider-Verse animated films, just because I mean, historically, I would say that DC has held the upper hand in animation. I mean, as of late, people could say, with the Spider-Verse films and then with X-Men 97 that the tides are turning compared to DC's recent output, which is weird to say. But those are really good movies for being like a movie theater animated film. Like they weren't short, they were complex, they had pretty good writing. The animation was pretty damn good. I mean, I'm not an animator, so I don't know the technical aspects, but it looks like it was pretty labor intensive and they had put care into it, which a lot of things seem to lack nowadays, in my opinion. And it's a good way to, especially I guess from a business standpoint, to introduce, Miles Morales and Spider-Gwen to both younger kids and like the general public because it made me like the characters more than I thought I would. And that's a big feat in and of itself. Because if you've heard me, I sound like an old man in a young man's body. I'm a curmudgeon. I just want my Peter Parker. I don't need no extras. But when you're watching those films, you don't really think about it like that. And the characters are enjoyable. It's got pretty good pacing. It's even got some good twists in case you haven't seen them. But I felt like they were deserving, especially for like the magnitude of I guess the scale of these feature-length animated films, especially since they're supposed to do another one to wrap up the story. But yeah, I feel like those are pretty damn good. And I know some people aren't really fans of like animated films in general, like they're childish, which to a degree they are. That is the target market usually, but you can kind of get away with a lot more that you're not getting in a blockbuster live action film. You can convey more of the cool aspects of superheroism, I guess, more kinetically. And yeah, I would think that those are some of the better movies I've actually seen. And especially when you compare it to a lot of the live action stuff or like recent output, Spider-Verse.
So is that your eight and seven?
No, it's like my eight, but it's like a half across them since it feels like one big story. I don't know which one I actually prefer because the first one always has that dumb song in my head. And it's like, left in the dust and you slap my nuts. And I always laugh about that one. That's not actually how it goes, but that's how it goes to me. And then the other one was like the newer one was really good, but at the same time, I feel like because it was like it ended on a cliffhanger, it feels weird to put that as like the one since the story didn't like wrap. So I'm just gonna go with one and two thus far because those two, it's almost like one extended film in a way. But
I
I
had
don't
a
know.
hard time with it too because he almost wanted to count it as one movie because it's kind of like one story across three movies.
Right.
But no, before I give you my eight, I'll give you my seven and six because I did separate them. We were right around the same spot. So number seven was my Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So the first one,
Yeah.
9 out of 10 for me. At first, I was pretty put off by the art style, so I wasn't one of the first people to watch that movie, but it was on one day and I started watching it, and it actually the art style grew on me, but moreover, it was because the movie was so excellent. Like it felt so original when it came out. Like there was nothing like it. And I feel like they kind of Marvel broke out with their animated stuff with that movie and can do stuff like that moving forward if they want to. But
Peter
I actually
Porker.
did think Across the Spider-Verse was a little better. To your point, the ending was not a conclusion, so it kind of doesn't feel like its own movie.
That's the
So it
thing.
was hard to like put it above the first one, especially with how groundbreaking the first one was. But like I watched the second one with my wife, and she's very critical of all things comic books. And she even said
Fair.
it was just like stuff that like morals that like people can relate to. Like the storytelling was like pretty relatable to even non-comic book fans. And I don't know. The times that I've watched both movies, I really, really enjoyed them for their uniqueness. And I feel like this is crazy, but my favorite ever Marvel movies. So,
Oh, damn. Yeah, I probably agree, which is gonna make my next one more confusing.
but wait,
Um,
wait. I'm gonna go back to eight because I
Yeah, no,
skipped
I'm not
over.
jumping the gun either. But
Oh,
I do gotta say that Across the Spider-Verse does have the inclusion of Jamaican beef patties in one of the scenes, and so that kind of does give it the edge, because you know me, them beef patties is where it's at, dog.
okay.
He
Whew.
did though. Do you not remember? He was in the bodega, dude, and he's like, "These are free."
I
And
don't remember.
he was munching one, and I noticed because you know me. You know, I
Yeah,
fed you a beef patty at my house.
I remember.
Hell yeah, dude. I respect him for that. I want a
Yeah,
New York bodega beef patty. What the hell? But go ahead. Back to eight. I'm sorry.
yeah, my bad. So, my number eight, Joker. Now, this is like a 7 out of 10 for me.
Oh,
I don't think it's like a great movie, but I can't get enough of Joaquin Phoenix when he really dives into a role. He's one of those actors that kind of gives it his all. And although Jack Nicholson's still my favorite Joker, this movie was like so disturbing for something that was so like accessible to people,
yeah, it's kind of
that it's
stressful.
hard not to like appreciate his take on the character.
Right.
It gave
No, I'm
me,
with you.
I don't know, it kind of felt like a lot of classic movies too, which I appreciated. It didn't really feel like a superhero movie. It kind of felt more like Taxi
Taxi
Driver
driver.
or, stuff like that. So I thought Joker deserved to make it on the list, but right before the Spider-Man movies, just because those were so groundbreaking.
Yeah, it's a good movie. I don't know how much I look forward to a sequel of it. I felt like it made sense as a standalone, but
I
now we're
I,
getting one.
I agree. Maybe I'm just off-putted by like the idea of the next one.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's actually a musical.
It's got
That's
musical
something,
aspects. I don't think the whole thing is a musical.
right? So that
But
kind of just like you could have left that one alone and it would have been fine. But I guess enough on Joker. What's your number seven?
so this is why I say it's confusing because I would probably say that now I enjoy the Spider-Verse movies more, but now I guess, as far as live action films go and magnitude and importance, Infinity War, like you mentioned. I was with you when we saw Endgame. I don't know if it was just the movie theater and the, sheer ignorance of everyone around us that helped take me out of it, or that I was incredibly bored because it had none of the heart or interesting aspects of Infinity War. But the original Infinity War, I mean, I can't sit and watch the whole damn thing over and over again like some people can to this day. But I remember when that came out, I was like, oh, hell yeah, brother. Like, as far as a Marvel movie goes, like all of that build up and, everything finally culminated in something cool happening. Half the gang got freaking wiped out by a big purple nutsack chin having guy. Pretty sick. The scale, Hulk getting whooped up front, set a good tone for the rest of the movie. Thanos was like a nuanced but like powerful character that you actually were like, oh shit, after all those brief cameos after the movies and stuff like that. So I thought like it was pretty good for like a giant ensemble movie. Like just the scale of it, like there's a ton of ways that that movie could have been a total failure with how much they included, but they did it all pretty nicely with like the pacing and everything. But like I said, Endgame kind of made it fall flat in the grand scheme of things in my mind. I know a lot of people will disagree with that, but I really think Endgame was just kind of lame and there was a lot of fan service at the end that I don't care for. But yeah, I mean, that's why I said my ratings aren't like the most firm. I guess, in hindsight, I'd probably put the Spider-Verse movies ahead of that, but I have that one as around my 7 pick. You want me to go into 6 or you go into your 6?
Well, I gave my 6 when I gave my 7.
Oh, I can't count. All right. Well, my 6 is The Dark Knight.
Okay.
I mean, good movie. I mean, like the Nolan trilogy, I'd say it started off at its strongest and then, gradually got worse. Not saying that The Dark Knight was bad. The Dark Knight Rises was the worst one of the three, but The Dark Knight is at 6. We've got a really good classic Joker rendition. It's more good Bale Batman, where are the drugs? So, pretty sick. I don't know. Good movies. I can't really expound too much really upon that. I mean, everyone's seen them at this point. I mean, is there really a whole lot to say? I mean, it's a good Batman movie. It's kind of hard to find a bad Batman movie. You could say Batman and Robin, but like even then it's like cheesy and I like that. But I don't feel like if you're trying to tell somebody to go watch a comic book movie, like I don't feel like you can go wrong when you're like, yeah, just go watch The Dark Knight. You know what I mean?
I agree. That was next on my list. That's my number 5.
All right.
I don't even have much to say on it. Like I could see how it's the best rated movie of
Yeah.
the three because it's probably the most entertaining to audiences, especially like comic and non-comic fans, to be honest with you, because like not only do you have Heath Ledger literally giving his all for that performance, but like you have Two-Face in there and just I don't know, a really good sequel to the first movie. So it's entertaining and it's usually the one people point to in the trilogy. But yeah, also not my actual favorite of the trilogy.
Sick. I had a feeling. So if that's your 5, we'll go ahead and skirt on down to my number 5, which I'm assuming this may be higher up on yours. Batman 89 is my number 5. So Michael Keaton, the first one with Jack Nicholson Joker. Iconic. Hot take. Well, I mean, if you're new here, hot take, I guess. But if you've listened to us for a while, Nicholson's still my favorite Joker. So very cool. I mean, just the whole vibe of that movie too. I mean, especially for it being like a relatively early comic movie. I mean, we had the Superman movies and stuff prior, but putting Batman in the mainstream like that. Well, I mean, Batman's Batman, but for a feature-length film, just the once again, the aesthetic of everything, just the way that Gotham City looked, kind of reminds you of the animated series in a way, like the architecture of the buildings, like the just general, like kind of griminess, but also like the upscale nature of it. It just felt very comic grounded without being too cheesy or without being too serious, For the time, it had a whole Prince soundtrack. I know you enjoyed seeing a recent viewing of the film. So why don't you tell us a little bit more? I'm sure.
Yeah, that made my next. That's my number 4. This movie's like a 7 out of 10 for me. It's not like an excellent movie, but it's an excellent comic book movie and holds a special place in my heart because I did go see it live with my wife. Her friends talked us into go seeing like a live orchestra that was playing the soundtrack throughout the whole movie. But when I sat down and the lights dimmed and then this band started playing, like not only is that movie excellent on its own, I mean, I'm sure everybody listening has already seen that movie, or if you haven't, I mean, it's high on both of our lists for a reason, just because of how iconic it is. But yeah, I don't know. Special experience in my heart, and I don't know if that plays into it, but that's my number four as far as superhero movies go.
We also did take pictures next to that Batmobile of that era when we were kids. And I think we saw like a live show on the water down in Florida, which also kind of ties into then. But since we cruised through your four, my four is Spider-Man 2 because he's fighting Dr. Puss. And it's probably one of the better Spider-Man movies, also from just, when we were kids. Spider-Man 1 was sick. Spider-Man 2 was really good. I mean, that's the one where he's more estranged from MJ, his boy Harry. Aunt May's getting evicted. He's got to deal with Dr. Puss. And then, just an iconic movie. Really made Spider-Man legitimate in theaters. I mean, especially before the third one came out and it kind of made things a bit silly. But also Dr. Octopus, I think, was probably, I mean, other than Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin, was probably the strongest supervillain in the Spider-Man films.
Dog, I'm mad at myself for not fitting that on my top 10. Everybody likes the Spider-Man movies.
Right. One and two are baller.
It's not even, maybe it didn't make my list because I'm not like in love with those movies, but they're so rewatchable, you know?
Exactly.
So I really can't blame you. Final thought on Batman, though. I like Tim Burton movies, and I think the reason that movie was so good at that time is because I don't know that anybody was really expecting it to be a really good movie.
Right. I mean, they didn't even want Michael Keaton as the actor.
Right. With that said, my number four has a very similar vibe. Superman, first
That's my number
Superman movie.
three.
Dang. I mean, I don't blame you. It could be a top three movie of mine because, like, that's a movie that they put effort into. And you can
Yeah.
tell, and it shows on the live screen, like, I don't know, best live action Superman movie to this day. I love the take on Superman. I love the take on Lois Lane. It's a great origin for the character. It's a really long movie, but there's a lot of great cinematic scenes as well. I really can't say enough good things about that movie.
Yeah, I watched it for the first time, honestly, on the flight to and from my honeymoon, and really enjoyed that film. It was very wholesome, and I can see why it's an absolute classic for, a multitude of reasons. I don't think anyone's gonna touch that take on the character for quite some time.
Excuse me, that is my three, isn't it? Maybe I'm losing track of my math.
You might be.
Yeah, that's my number three.
Sick. Well, we're in lockstep then.
Sick. Well, number two then. I'm gonna give it, and this is a cheater. I'm cheating today.
Okay.
Batman: The Dark Knight Returns Part 1 and 2. I guess if you're gonna give it to
Oh.
one of the two, I'm gonna give it to Part 2 specifically. But I remember my brother, I was spending the night at his house, Juan, and he got me hip to it. Not only is it Frank Miller's best work brought into like an animated version, but I think it's the most entertaining Batman thing I've ever watched, live action or not. And it's one of those movies, it's just like if somebody asks me like about Batman and I got the time to sit down and watch a movie with them, I might be putting on part one and two of The Dark Knight Returns, honestly.
It's a good choice to be real.
Yeah, it's
Mine's also
pretty
Batman.
faithful adaptation. So it's not that it's an excellent movie per se, but it is a good animated movie too. But more so, it's just like an example of like how good comic books are.
I'm with you though. Mine's a Batman movie as well for number two. Mine's Batman Begins.
Okay.
Just because it's badass. I just like the first movie the best out of those. And I mean, it's just one of those movies I feel is fairly rewatchable. I just like watching him deal with Liam Neeson, Ra's al Ghul, and it's just something about it. How he's kind of on the come up. It's a different take on the character a little bit, but not too much. And it's just I don't know, quality filmmaking. I mean, it's hard to talk like at length about the Nolan films to say anything that hasn't already been said. But those two movies are like kind of like what I think too, and I think of like a not like the gold standard, but they're pretty up there for like a superhero film. Like that's kind of like the barometer. If it's worse than that, it's usually a pretty bad to mid movie. But if it's better than that, it's a pretty damn good movie. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean because that's my number one.
Oh shit.
Yeah, best movie of all time, dog. Superhero movie anyway. It's not even the best movie on my list, but it's my favorite comic book movie. I don't know what it is. Maybe I just like the first of things, but it's the most comic book live action movie I've ever seen. It doesn't feel like a movie. It doesn't feel like a comic. It feels like a comic book movie. And to your point, yeah, great cast of villains for the very first movie, and it would be the first live action movie I turn on if I wanted to show somebody like what I'm interested in. So again, to your point, I don't know that there's much to talk about with the Nolan trilogy that hasn't already been said, but unpopular opinion, I think it starts with Batman Begins. What's your number one?
You know damn well. This is one where I'm cheating a little bit. It's not a
Talk to me.
superhero,
Talk to me.
The Crow,
Oh.
because it's based on a comic, dude. And I just love the movie. It's a classic for me. Don't know why I vibe with it so much. I think it is the aesthetic, it's the whole vibe of it. It's in Detroit. Shouts out. Brandon Lee gave his all for that role as well. RIP. But the movie's so good. A dude basically exacting his revenge little by little and doing it. I mean, none of the movies since have ever been good. The one that's coming out's not going to be good, but like, I'm not really a movie guy, but I will be like, you should watch The Crow for the first time if you haven't already seen it, which may be goofy, but like I said, this is a way to get to know us and our taste in movies. So I mean, it's on brand for me to be quite goofy. So yeah, I rock with The Crow. I mean, I own his first appearance, the first issue, all kinds of stuff. So I'm definitely gonna co-sign on that.
Well, I wish we had more time. I'd love to give shout outs, like Watchmen, even though I don't like Zack Snyder, The Winter Soldier, first Iron Man movie. I name dropped earlier, but Batman, Mask of the Phantasm. I could really make a top 20. But till next time, guys.
And until then, rate, review, subscribe, or don't. We can't make you. Check us out on socials. CBJ Pod on Instagram. That's the main way. Other than that, we appreciate you for listening through. If you're new here, welcome. We hope you stay along for the ride. Hope you become a junkie with us. If you're already a junkie, hell yeah, shouts out. We salute you. And with that, we'll catch you again on the next one.
Salute.